Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission: to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club. Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club.
The Friday tradition and spooky month comes to an end with this week's selection.
It doesn't have to come to
It
an
doesn't.
end, John.
You could pick a horror movie.
You have the power.
Next Thursday will be Halloween. We could all watch one more horror movie before Halloween.
Be cool about it, John. Be cool.
Well, I've already picked my movie because I've already watched it.
Sad.
And I'll give you a hint before we get to it. The Under is going to hit next week.
Oh!
But first, let's
Wow.
welcome in Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Hello, Kent.
Hi, Kent.
Hello.
Kent, it's a gorgeous fall day out here
Oh, my
at
gosh.
Omaha Roncalli. It's a darn shame that we couldn't play this Nebraska-Ohio State game in Lincoln. It's a perfect fall weekend.
Yes, it is. But on the other hand, do you really want to watch that in person?
Great point, Kent. Now you don't have to be there in person to see thousands streaming for the exits.
I mean, I probably wasn't going to be there anyway because I do have the basketball game to
That's true.
to,
You do. You do.
know, here in Omaha. But
Yeah.
your point is well taken, Kent. The movie this week is Aliens. We did the original several months ago.
It was about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can look it up here in a minute, but we did the original from 1979. This was the sequel that came out 7 years later.
That's a long time.
Yeah, a long time later. And to some people, to some critics, it was actually better than the original. We'll see what we all think of it in just a moment. But, Nick, this was your selection.
It was. So Aliens is, in many ways, a movie about motherhood. One woman is trying to protect her kid from getting eaten. The other mother is trying to prevent their food from killing her children. Stuff like that. But it takes place, 57 years after the events of the first movie. Sigourney Weaver's character wakes up from cryo sleep. And the company is like, hey, what the hell happened? You lost us a lot of money. And then she's like, an alien happened. And she's like, no, it didn't. Also, this colony that we set up on this planet that you claim there was an alien at, some weird stuff's happening.
Oh, interesting. I wonder what it could be.
Weird. Anyway, go check that out. So then they go check it out. Shocking.
Aliens.
That's the name of the movie. There's more than one alien.
Mhm.
Aliens. And it starts out as a recon mission, and then they find the lone survivor of the colony, a little girl. And then as they try to escape this planet after they find all the aliens, a bunch of things happen that prevent them from escaping the planet until eventually they're able to leave and then fight the mama alien in one of the most iconic, I think, endings to a movie.
Is
that
it?
There is. A lot of people have liked this. Like when I think of Alien, the franchise, I think of that scene, her in the hauler robot exoskeleton.
Okay,
thing.
no,
Yeah.
so that wasn't a criticism of the opinion. It was more, I didn't realize that was an iconic moment.
I think it's science fiction, obviously, and that's kind of where, and Kent, it's interesting timing and all this, because as we said, there was 7-year gap between the original and this one. When the original was made, Sigourney Weaver wasn't very well known. This movie is made basically in the wake of her hit in Ghostbusters. So she's become a bigger
mega
star at this point. And then in this movie, even though, I mean, she certainly was a ass kicker in the first one, but this one kind of took it up another level. And we're talking about, almost 40 years ago, before, we had a lot of female or heroine heroes, who would fight these, weird beasts. And I thought, this movie kind of, just amplified her aura, I guess, as an action star.
Well, absolutely. She was, at the time, they said, she was the only woman actress that could open an action movie. That was what that was always the phrase, could open a movie, right? Because once again, the business didn't quite work exactly the same way as it does now. But why that happened is because this James Cameron wrote this movie as well as directed it, and he is really good at women characters, right? Of making them like real. This wasn't a quote male gaze running around in a Wonder Woman outfit or something, right? She's this tough woman, basically, who then is able to play this role, and then bringing in the little girl humanizes her in a different way, and it allows her to process what she went through in the first movie by sympathizing with the little girl, right?
Yep.
So that's what makes it a better movie, right? In addition to the last hour being nothing but tension, right? What makes it a better movie is there's an actual characters that you care about, one in particular, and she's supremely she got nominated for an Academy Award for that performance.
Wow.
Which is almost unheard of for an action movie. And then the critics at the time said basically she out Rambo's Rambo in the last 30 minutes or whatever it is.
What I really liked about this movie is that it didn't try to overshadow or be bigger than the first one necessarily. It felt like it more so built on to the first movie. So it feels like a natural progression. It doesn't feel like they're trying to just get bigger and bigger for the hell of it. It all makes sense how everything kind of progresses.
Yeah, the plurality of the movie being aliens versus one singular alien. I don't think that could have gotten out of hands in the wrong director's hands. And Kent, like, watching it again this time, I just couldn't help but be blown away by James Cameron and like how he paces the movie and how he sets up scenes. I thought the music, especially at the end, there's like that little rumble that he always would have, like right before a big moment. And I think that he does just like a really, really good job. There's so much discourse about the guy all the time because, especially now he's just doing the Avatar stuff. Mm-hmm. But he is really good at making an action movie. We did, what was the one with Schwarzenegger?
Terminator.
We did Terminator 2, and he did Terminator 2. And that's another one of those movies where it's like he's just really good at setting up everything from scene to scene to scene.
Absolutely. And the other thing that Cameron does, and regardless of what you think of the Avatar movies, he creates environments,
creates a world.
He's an excellent world builder,
and in doing so, he this time, all right, your mission, James Cameron, was to make a sci-fi / horror thriller, right? That's really that's your mission here. And how do you accomplish that? He builds this world and then puts the characters from the alien, including the aliens, into it. And in Alien, which is essentially a slasher movie, right?
Yeah.
There's the slasher is going to get these people on this ship instead of getting the teenagers, right? So he drops her into, instead of a slasher movie, a war picture or a Western, however you want to, whichever trope you want to use, right? Very formula, like think Saving Private Ryan or something like the Seven Samurai / the Kurosawa movie that's been remade a million times, where these 7 guys get recruited to defend a village, right? And these outsider are going to come kill the village. So it's that he takes that, creates these characters, puts them in that formula in a sci-fi environment, bang, and then knows how to pace a movie. That's That's pretty impressive. And he's done that with all his movies. Even if you hate Avatar, he's doing really the same thing.
The thing that is unique about this, and why I thought it was better than the first. I liked the first one, but I liked this one better, was basically Sigourney Weaver's the only returning character from the first movie. Obviously, the artificial life,
the cat
character is back, but it's artificial life, so it's just an android. But Sigourney Weaver's really the only returning character, and so they have to reestablish everything else. There's the dynamic of her coping with what happened. First of all, she was in cryostasis for 57 years.
Yeah.
So
that's going to have an effect on somebody.
It's kind of a Buck Rogers situation going on. Then you have the dynamic of the corporation that she's working for not believing her story and blaming her for the loss of all of their equipment and their millions. I thought it was funny. They were talking about $40 million equipment. We think, apparently inflation didn't happen in this society, but that's
they also still smoke.
So you have the Paul Reiser character, who's like the Weasley, basically bean counter for the corporation.
Yeah, when
who
he
goes
turns
with them
off
on the mission.
camera, that one scene.
You have the Marines, the colonial Marines that she goes to investigate with, and that whole story. And then, of course, you have the girl and you have the aliens themselves. So you have a lot of different layers playing here that weren't in existence the first time around. And it made it feel even though you're fighting the same enemy or same type of enemy, it felt very different because there's a lot of different layers going on that carried you through the whole thing. And like you mentioned, Kent, basically the last hour was nonstop, aliens here, aliens there.
The scene when they're waiting and it's like they're X meters away, X meter. Like that scene is so good because okay, they're either up above or they're down below. Where are they going to come from? And so when they peek up there and they're turning the flashlight around and then you see them all crawling. I mean, just like, what a great scene. What a great scene of tension.
I love a reason I love these Alien movies, and I haven't seen a single one until we watched the first Alien movie, are these themes of it's femininity, isn't it, Ken? The first movie,
sure.
Yeah. And then this movie deals with motherhood and the struggles of motherhood, and I know no mother's actually trying to protect their kid from a scary alien monster, but that scene where Sigourney Weaver is rescuing the little girl and then she makes eye contact with the queen alien and they essentially come to an agreement, an unspoken agreement. It's like, hey, let us leave or I'm going to burn your babies. And the queen alien's like, yeah, sure. But then you see the other egg pod open up. You're like, oh, and then she saw that too. And then it's the way that they were able to communicate without having to understand each other. I thought that was extremely well done. And the themes of motherhood, just within that, 5 minutes of that scene where the tension was boiling, by the way, it was so good. And all the world building that they've managed to squeeze into this movie that fleshes out the entire universe and has implications that you could just study. It's like, oh, well, if this is like this, that must mean that these other dominoes have fallen somewhere along these last 57 years. You can just fill in those gaps. And I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant writing.
Ken, it might be difficult. I mean, we're going back 40 years, but I'm curious what you recall from the run-up to this, because it was a 7-year gap. You have a brand new director. It's no longer Ridley Scott. It's now James Cameron. You're still trying to trying to extend the story. I'm curious what the reception was prior to the film's release and then what it was like after the film's release. Because like I said in the outset, a lot of people consider this to be better than the original.
The run-up, as far as the advertising and whatever went, was, remember, this came after the Terminator.
Yes.
So this was Terminator director makes alien movie with Sigourney Weaver is back. So that was basically the setup. And so there was some pretty good anticipation for it. And then once it came out, it was like, how do I want to put this? I don't know of anybody that didn't like it, right? That actually saw it in that first couple weeks. And the critical reception was largely 85-90% positive. And in some cases, I mean, I looked up, it was in my top 10 movies for that year, right? So it was really well accepted. There are two facts I wanted to, facts to know and tell, or one is a fact to know and tell, and the other one is something that has now baffled me for I don't know how many, since the movie came out, however many years that is. The first one is Michael Biehn, who is the Hicks, the corporal, the sort of semi-love interest, whatever, for Sigourney Weaver, went to junior high in Lincoln, grade school.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was born, I can't remember where, and his family moved to Arizona by the time he would graduated high school, but he grew up in Lincoln.
Isn't he the same actor who played John Connor in the first Terminator?
Absolutely is.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought.
Is that going to be your second fact?
That's the connection with, no, that's the connection with Cameron. Think about it. Okay. This isn't really I guess it's a fact, but it's baffled me for this whole time. Where did that line, it's going to be a vapor cloud the size of Nebraska, come from? Right? How did he pick Nebraska? Why?
That means that Nebraska has made it that far in the future. So congrats, Nebraska. You didn't get destroyed.
Good on us.
Good on us. So apparently Ohio State's not going to win by that much.
It won't be a vapor cloud of dust tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about world building wise. Even in a throwaway line like that, you're like, oh, so Nebraska does exist in this universe.
Hey, I wanted to read this email that we got earlier today, because we get some real fun emails about the movies that we pick. And this was from one of our listeners, Chris. He says, I can't listen live today, but I wanted to give my thoughts on the film. It holds a special place in my heart. Alien, my first favorite film of all time, and Aliens in my top 5 were a couple of first films I watched as a young boy against my parents' wishes. My cousin talked about them all the time, and they sounded awesome, but Mom and Dad thought they were too scary for little old baby me. So I snuck out to watch TV late one weekend because I knew Aliens was on, and I had to watch. Everything changed after that. I fell in love. It was thrilling, captivating, terrifying, and had one of the greatest movie heroes of all time, Ripley, a strong, no-nonsense woman who didn't take bleep from anyone, but was also vulnerable and had a kind heart. The perfect heroine, and one that is yet to be topped, yes, even better than Sarah O'Connor in Terminator. James Cameron was on top of his game in this one. He took Ridley Scott's Dark Alien and found a way to make a worthy successor to the greatest sci-fi film of all time. He made real characters that you either hated or loved to see die. A dark setting where you really feel the desperation of all involved. It had a terrifying villain. It's everything I love about violent and action-filled cinema. I'm excited to listen to the segment later. With love, Venmo Chris.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And a lot of the...
Are you trying to retire me?
Pretty well written. I won't lie. Pretty well written. Also, this film had a ton of competition at the box office that year.
Yeah.
It finished 7th for this year, behind Top Gun.
Oh, wow.
Crocodile Dundee, Platoon, who we saw a couple weeks ago, Karate Kid 2, Star Trek 4, and Back to School.
Is Star Trek 4 the whale one?
Yes.
I like the whale one.
I forget, is it
That
the
was
odds or the evens that were good?
The even-numbered Star Treks are good.
So that's a good one then.
Star Trek are good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Star Trek are
the
good.
first one is okay, but
Yeah,
it drags until they get to V'ger.
Yeah, the first one is really not great. Yeah, it's not.
They spend 10 minutes looking at the outside of the Enterprise from different angles.
Yeah, the first one didn't have the charm. Not that we're reviewing Star Trek here, but the Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley character is so good because it's believable in a world that we can't experience. It's a believable character.
I think all the characters are.
They are. But I mean, she's obviously the common thread through all of these.
Yeah.
And the email mentioned the vulnerability, but there's also the toughness. She gets scared like the rest of them. There's the scene in this one where the little girl says, "I'm scared," and she said, "I'm scared too." So even though she's not a mother of this girl per se, she is the motherly figure.
Yeah.
She's a person. They wrote her like a real person.
Yes. And it's not over the top and, Hollywoody. She feels real, right? She feels like if you dropped a real person into that situation, this is how a real person's going to react.
Remember that she is a highly trained actress who has had Tony Awards or Tony nominations. I mean, she can act, right? And a lot of times you get in an action movie and people are cast not because they're great actors, but because they're action stars, if that makes a difference. This is a great actor in an action starring role. That's one thing. The other thing that helps her that people don't think about is the physicality, right? She's got to be believable with the physicality. She's 6 feet tall. That helps. She's big, literally a bigger, especially at that time, there weren't a lot of 6 feet tall women, particularly acting.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And that, I think,
there's that. And the way they set up the fact, I love how they set up the final fight scene where she gets into the lifter. They set that up early on when she's having to prove to the Marines, hey, I can handle myself. Where do you want this? And so they set up the final fight scene by showing that, yeah, she's good at operating this. So, because in a lot of movies,
Chekhov's fighter.
Yeah, but in a lot of movies, they wouldn't do that. And so when a normal Joe or normal Josephine, in the case of this, jumps into one of these things, like, oh, how are you going to know how to operate that? They set it up earlier by saying, hey, she knows what she's doing here, and that makes the final fight scene more believable.
Another thing that I liked about that is she said that she was, grade 2 or class 2 certified?
Yeah.
That tells me that this company, 57 years later, is still using the same equipment. Because why wouldn't they be? They're cutting corners. Why? See, and that it's stuff. It's little touches like that adds to the world building, intentional or unintentional. Ken, something I wanted to ask you, because I don't think we're ever going to get to it in Movie Club, but since the last new Alien movie came out, I've seen a lot of people go back and reevaluate Prometheus, which I remember when it came out, a lot of people didn't seem to like. I'm curious, have you reevaluated Prometheus? Do you think that movie is good now that it's been around? Do you think it's a good addition to the universe that these movies take place in?
I didn't hate it when it came out. Let's start there. And I think that it has sort of aged into that where it's respectable into the when it came out. I think that really, how do you want to say? I think, strangely enough, this is the one of the few series where most of the movies really are pretty good. The fourth one, I think it is not the world's greatest movie, but you get beyond that, I think, and apparently there's going to be another one.
Wow.
Well,
I guess we'll see when that comes out. When is it supposed to come out? Do you know?
There's no date on it yet that I've seen.
Okay.
I know that new Alien movie that came out, a lot of people seem to like. I'd like to watch that one.
Alien Resurrection?
It was
Romulus.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one is decent. That was the one I was thinking of. So, yeah.
I love this series. Josh, thank you for picking the first movie in this
series. I do what I can.
When you did, because I have found it's rare to find a thing that you love this much. And
especially as the older you get.
Exactly. I fell in love with these movies and I want to watch all of them. I love this universe.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate you didn't have a chance to see them in the theater.
Yeah.
I think that about so many of these movies, man, that we pick, I'm always like, man, that'd be so cool to see it on the big screen.
This thing was terrifying in the theater.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine. Just crawling out of the walls.
I can imagine.
And and I think about this, and like, if they made it today, even using the same effects and stuff they have, which I think Cameron did a great job with, this won the Oscar for visual effects. And I think he did a great job. But imagine this with the Dolby Atmos sound, where it comes at you from all directions, and it would just be absolutely terrifying in the theater.
Yeah.